It's a privilege being a chaplain to this opera. Good to see you all tonight. What fun we do have here, don't we? Tonight we're going to be talking about that big thing over in the corner there, that big bass. We've been doing the instruments that are played here at the Opry because they're important, and a lot of us don't know that much about them, about how they actually got started way back there in history, and how they got modified along their journey, and what we do with them today. But that bass, that's a big thing to lug around and transport. Can you imagine putting that in your car, or having to take it somewhere, or get it up here on the stage? Yeah. We just leave it there most of the time, don't we? It sits right there. Well, this is the band's, I'm sure, tonight. But anyhow, it looks simple, doesn't it? Is it that all important? You stand up there, so I sit there and kind of slaps at it. You think, well, that's easy. I could do that. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. I want to tell you the story of the stand-up bass. The stand-up or upright bass is a modern descendant of the bass violin that originated in Europe in the 15th century. The stand-up bass developed in 1542. That's back in Columbus Day almost, by the Venetian musician Silvestro Ganassi, and it has several names: the upright bass, the double bass, the acoustic bass, and the contrabass. Before the 20th century, many bass instruments had only 3 strings, in contrast to the 5 or 6 strings typical of instruments in the viol family, or the 4 strings of instruments in the violin family. The stand-up bass is the only modern bowed string instrument that is tuned in fourths, like a viol, rather than fifths, like the violin. But the modern stand-up bass is not a true member of either the viol family or the violin family. It has a place all of its own. The acoustic stand-up bass is the most commonly used bass instrument in bluegrass, and it's always plucked instead of bowed. The bluegrass bassist is part of the band's rhythm section. Now, this is where the importance comes in. He's responsible on that bass for keeping a steady beat, whether fast or slow, in 4/4, 2/4, or 3/4 time. The bass maintains the chord progression and the harmony. Some contemporary bluegrass bands favor the electric bass because, why? It's easier to carry around, it's smaller. But the stand-up is big and somewhat fragile, so they like to take the electric bass. But it has a different musical sound. Many musicians feel that the slower attack and percussive woody tone of the upright bass gives it a more earthy or natural sound than the electric bass, particularly when gut strings are used. Now, Ed's out there nodding his head. Ed Bowman's here. Ed used to be up here playing that thing all the time. I'd love to see Ed up here playing that bass. So if you have questions, Ed, raise your hand. If you have questions about the bass, ask Ed, because he's been playing that a long time, I'm sure. In fact, I was with a musician in Nashville just this week who's been playing the bass for 60 years, ever since the 8th grade. And I showed him what I was going to do tonight. He said, that's fine, that's good, that's good material. Okay, so it has that great sound, particularly if you use gut strings on that bass. Now, the bluegrass bass typically is played on the root and the 5th note of each chord throughout most of a song. 2 exceptions are when bluegrass bassists do a walk-up or walk-down, playing every beat of a bar for 1 or 2 bars, typically when there's a chord change. If bass players are given the lead, they may play what is called a walking bass line, with a note on every beat, or play a pentatonic scale. Sometimes the bass player plays a slap style. You've seen some of the folks that come play it slap style. When the bass player slaps the bass, pulling a string until it hits the fingerboard, or hitting the strings against the fingerboard, it adds kind of a percussive sound, like those who play on those wooden things, to give a beat. So they'll do that from time to time. It makes a sound kind of like a tap dancer, a clacking sound. The stand-up bass has been the standard in both country western and bluegrass music, but now the electric bass has largely replaced the stand-up bass in country music, especially in the new country music styles of the 1990s and 2000s. However, the stand-up bass is still the standard in bluegrass and most other musical genres. We're grateful for our stand-up bass players, and the one who's coming tonight, I'm sure, who still work hard to transport that big instrument around and get it up on the stage so that we can enjoy the deep, deep, rich sounds. It's been interesting to think about these instruments that have developed over time. You know, God is working on shaping us, too, over time. And so we need to look to him in prayer.